Good evening. Coming to you live this time on a Monday night. It's Monday night, February the 9th. Welcome to our weekly podcast. It now gets fun. In previous weeks, for those of you that have been tuning in, you know that we've been having our Coaches Corner, interviewing some coaches from across the state. Before I move on, this is Around the State. It is a Prep Baseball Alabama podcast discussing all things relevant to high school baseball across the state of Alabama. I am David Sharp, Deep South Supervisor, along with our Alabama Scouting Director, Austin Sharp. Tonight's when we're going to get into what a lot of people are waiting to hear, to see. We are going to release our 1A through 7A classification polls here in just a couple minutes. We have spent a lot of hours coming up with these 1A through 7A teams and getting them ranked where we think they should be. And I'll touch more on that as we get back into that in just a minute. But we will not be doing a Power 25 tonight. Our first Power 25, Power 25 will be Sunday, March the 1st, after we've seen all the team or seen, after they get their season started, we see results and try to see as many as we can. But yeah, man, we are pumped about it. I know Austin's ready to get started with this as well. But before we do so, Austin, I know that you got our scouting year started today, man, with a little AISA action, right?
Right. Yep. I went over to, I guess today was opening day for AISA, and was just looking to get out of the house, honestly, and was fortunate to able to find a matchup. Lakeside School. They went last year's Class A state champion, went 53-6. They returned a lot and added some big pieces, and they opened their season today with a doubleheader at St. Pacelli over in Columbus. So about a 50-minute drive for me. Got to swing over there, catch game one. Got to see Boston Brown throw. JB Upton hit a bomb. And I mean, just a big time lineup that could go toe to toe with a lot of the higher classification schools in Alabama, to be honest. But they Coach Rasmus has got it rolling over there, and I know we've been tracking their game too. They won game one, I think 6-0. Boston Brown went 6 2/3. And then I think Luke McGowan's got 10 strikeouts right now, and I think they're in the 5th or 6th or something, but they're up 2-0. But expect the Chiefs to win a lot of games this year. So I got to see him get win number one.
No doubt. Yeah, they're currently they're up 2-1, the top of the 7th. We're now 2-1, top of the 7th. Jackson Langham's hitting with a guy in scoring position.
And listen to that. I went to a baseball game opening. I don't know if you call it opening weekend, but first baseball game I go to, I'm in short sleeve shirt and shorts.
That is nice.
75 degrees. So yes. I didn't have any complaints today.
It makes it a lot more fun for players, coaches, umpires, fans, scouts, everybody. So, yeah, Austin got our coverage started today. Obviously, our coverage will ramp up once the AHSA gets started. That's on Thursday, February the 19th. And Austin and I have already been talking about where we're going that day. And then the next day we'll get cranked up with our kickoff classic. But yeah, we're going to, before we get started, as we do all the time, we do want to mention our shop. If you are interested in any merchandise for prep baseball, our shop is at shop.prepbaseball.com. We think that shop has really improved of late. There's some pretty sweet pieces on there. And, we are seeing more and more prep baseball stuff. Yeah, don't give our stuff away yet. We're seeing more and more stuff show up at events and different places. So if you're interested in any of that, man, there's the link Austin just put up there. Shop.prepbaseball.com. There's some new items on there that you may be interested in. So visit that if you want to. But now it's time for us to get cranked up into what we're here for, and that is to release our preseason top 10 in 1A through 7A. Again, there will not be a Power 25 until March the 1st. Before we get started with the rankings, I do want to just put this out there for everybody to hear, okay? This is a really, really difficult job for us, especially in a couple of the classifications. And I can speak 3A and 6A. I think 6A, in my opinion, I think 6A was the hardest for us. I mean, there, as I said, there's been a lot of discussion. I don't want to use the word arguments between Austin and I, but there's been some deep discussions on teams that maybe he felt stronger more than I did, or vice versa. But we're going to take a stab at it tonight, getting us cranked up. I do want to say one thing. We could care less who wins any game. We could care less who wins any state championship. We only want to get out and try to highlight high school baseball in the state of Alabama. We never want to disrespect anyone. If your team name is called tonight and you're in a top 10 for a classification, that doesn't guarantee you anything. Just like if we don't even talk about your team tonight, it's okay for you to use it as motivation, but it's no slap in the face at your program that you can't win, that you can't make a deep run and make it to the state playoffs. This is just something that we like to do. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I know it does matter because you want that recognition. But man, those area games that get you in the state playoffs, that's the only thing that counts. So again, I just want to make sure everybody understands this is fun. We enjoy doing it. We do try to do the best we can. There is no ranking system, whether it be high school team rankings, whether it be high school player rankings, whether it be college football rankings. There is no ranking system that is absolutely 100% correct. It's all subjective, and it all plays out on the field. That's what you have to know as a player or a parent or a coach. It all plays out on the field. And so time will only tell. But with that being said, I'm gonna roll it over to Austin, and Austin's going to get us started. And Austin set us up with some cool graphics here, man. So we're going to get cranked up with 1A. We'll turn it over to Austin and let him roll with it.
All right. So each class, we will start from 10 and work all the way up to 1, and then we'll get into some of the teams that are just outside the top 10. But we start in Class 1A at number 10. You've got Billingsley. Billingsley comes in off of a 21-10 record, and 25 reaches Sweet 16. At number 9 is Millery. Millery had a big season last year. They were ranked inside of our top 5. I feel like for the majority of the season, had a great record, 25-10. They were ranked number 3 going into the playoffs. Got beat by Otaga Academy in the Sweet 16, but expect them to have another big season. At number 8, we have Lynn, who finished outside the top 10 last year, but made a strong run through the playoffs. They went 20-12 and reached the quarterfinals. At number 7, you have Florala. Florala has been, in Class 1A, a staple. Seems like for the past few years, they've had a really good run of players who've really set that culture for Florala. They lost a good bit, or they lost some players. Dalton Jackson, who headed to Coastal Alabama North, but you bring back Jacob Lara, Easton Walsh, who's going to LBW. So they'll definitely be a tough out in Class 1A. Once again, at number 6, we have Brantley. Brantley went 21-5 last year, reached the Final Four, and really were strong all season long. Obviously, you lose 5 games, you had a great season. But Brantley, once again, we expect to be a threat in 1A. They come in at number 6. At number 5, Appalachian. Appalachian went 24-5, had another good record, another good season once again. I think they won the state title 2 years ago. They'll be hoping to make it back to Jacksonville, which I think is a pretty short commute for them. So 2 years ago, they made it. They packed it out. So I know that they're hoping to get back to the state finals this year. They went 24-5, like I said, last year, reached the Sweet 16 in a strong season. Getting into the top 4, we feel like the top 4 in this class is kind of really the top 4. I think is probably the upper echelon. There's the top tier of teams, and we settled with Leroy at number 4. The Bears finished as a state runner-up last year. Got beat by Hackleburg in 2 games, I think, and both games were decided by 1 run. It was an excellent series. Ultimately fell short to Hackleburg. They went 28-12, had a great season. You bring back, I think, pretty much every pitcher I think that threw, at least in the postseason, is back. So they've got a good stable of arms this year to get through Class 1A, led by Keegan Giles, a guy who we're familiar with. I've seen him at showcases, and they've got a bunch of other returners. Just looking at who they bring back and key pieces from last year, but the Bears should once again be a strong contender again this year in Class 1A in the South. Getting into number 3, we have Fayetteville. Fayetteville, I think returns over 1,000 plate appearances and pretty much all of their arms. They've got 2 guys, Ethan Jones and I think Brenton Cantrell, 2 guys who are headed to Lawson State, I think is where they're going to. But those 2 guys kind of lead the way. And like I said, I think that they return every positional player and every pitcher. So they've got, they're coming off of a season where they went 21-12, reached the Sweet 16, and just kind of came up short a little bit last year. I think they come into the season this year motivated and look poised to be one of the top teams to beat in Class 1A. We move to the top 2. At number 2 is Addison, a team who we're very high on. Finished in the semifinals last year, went 27-11. You look at last year's team, had a strong season. They return, and when we were doing these polls, we go look at every team's roster and because we did those last year in the playoffs. We did those the postseason performers, and so we got to when some names came up, we would be like, oh, we remember them. Well, there were a lot of names for Addison that came up that we are already familiar with, and those are names like Stone Talley, Connor Lane, Kaya Lake, and Tucker Thompson, 4 guys who had big postseasons and big seasons in general last year for Addison, and they're back this year. So we expect Addison to have another strong year. They start the year at number 2, and then obviously to be the champ, you got to beat the champ. Hackleburg stays at the top spot this year to start the year in Class 1A. You go 33-7 last year, win the state championship. They bring back Ross Hudson, who I think was the 1A state finals series MVP. They bring back some other key pieces as well. So Hackleburg is definitely going to be poised to defend their 1A state title this year. But this year they've got a target on their back. But there's a really strong group of teams, especially in the top 4 in Class 1A. So we're excited to see how it shapes out. If you want to go ahead, I can do the top 10. You want to bang out these teams just outside the top 10?
Yeah. Are there just 3 of them? Am I looking at the wrong spot?
No, you go to our sheet.
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. I don't see them on there. Where are they?
Our Google sheet.
Yeah, I'm in the Google sheet. Okay. I got it. I'm sorry. I apologize. I got it. Looking at some of those teams right outside, these are listed in alphabetical order. All right. I'm not going to talk in detail about these. I think there's about 6, 7, there's about 10 of them outside the top 10. You've got Athens Bible coming off a Sweet 16 appearance last year. Otaga Academy, you mentioned them in their deep run last year, made it to the Elite 8. A really impressive late season run by Otaga Academy. They had a losing record, but got hot at the right time. Coosa Christian, they did finish 13-13 last year, got beat in the first round of the 1A state playoffs. Hubbartville, they were 17-9 last year. We had them ranked for a fairly large percentage.
I think they made it the last week.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, they were outside the top 10 just about all year. And then we got them at 10. They made it to the Sweet 16 in 1A.
They've got a chance to have a really good – they've got a lot coming back. Cole Brand is a junior who hit 513 last year as a sophomore.
Yeah. Cole Brand. That's right. Let's see. I lost my spot here. Here we go. Back to Maples. Well, I know Maples was a team that I think that you really like this year. They got beat in the first round last year. Maplesville usually has a very strong baseball program. Pickens Academy made it to the Sweet 16 last year. Finished with a record of 16-14. South Lamar, after an Elite 8 appearance last year, they sit right outside our top 10. And then you've got three others, Spring Garden and Sweetwater. They got eliminated last season in the first round, and then wrapping us up in 1A, after their Sweet 16 appearance last year, University Charter. And I think that's a team to keep an eye on. University Charter, I think they can make some noise there. They did finish up right outside the top 10, but I think they're down around Livingston. I may be wrong. I think that's where they are. But University Charter is a team to follow in 1A. So there's your top 10 in 1A. And then again, we've got several right outside the top 10 worth keeping an eye on. And again, all of this will play itself out as the season progresses. Before we move on to 2A, would you have something else to say, Austin?
Yeah, Maplesville had a big addition. Eli Hubbard, UAB senior coming in, apparently has been up or into the low 90s on the mound. So that's a big piece for them. And then South Lamar was another team who's outside the bubble who has a lot coming back. And they made it to the Sweet 16, and in game one they were up 1-0. Ultimately, I think Huckleberg kind of took control of the game, and then game two they got beat 1-0. So they played the state champion hard last year and bring back a good bit from that team.
Yeah, that's my fault. I overlooked South Lamar. You're right.
You said South Lamar, but I was adding on some content.
I got you. Yeah, and before we move on to 2A, I do want to mention to you, that comment section out there. You have any questions or comments, please throw those in the comment section. We'll hopefully get to them. But with that said, let's go ahead and jump to 2A. This is a pretty deep class as well. And we'll let Austin get us cranked up here in 2A.
Yep. Just like 1A, we'll start at number 10. And at number 10, we have Tuscaloosa Academy. Tuscaloosa Academy joined the AHSAA 2 years ago when them and Pike Liberal Arts came over, and they've had 2 good years of success. Last year, had a strong season, reached the Elite Eight, didn't have a great record, went 16-21. I think I think they had a pretty bad.
I want to say they were like 0-11 or something.
It was something like that. But yeah, I think they played a tough schedule. Their basketball, I think they have a lot of players who play basketball. Mm-hmm. So a lot of those guys were coming over, still kind of getting into the flow of things. They start at number 10. A guy like Harwood Beaker comes back. I think they've got their catcher back who's had a strong season last year. Tuscaloosa is a part of the state that's got some really good baseball, especially this year. Tuscaloosa Academy plays a lot of those teams. The Bibb County, a lot of good teams in Tuscaloosa. So, they may take their lumps to start the season. They may drop out of the top 10. Who knows? But they're going to be battle tested by the time playoff comes around, and they've certainly made some strong runs the last couple of years. We'll see how they shape out this year. But they start at number 10. At number 9, we have Pike Liberal Arts. The runner-up from last year had a good series against the state champ, Vincent, but ultimately fell short. They come in at number 9 to start the season. Pike Liberal Arts, like I said, finished as the runner-up. They went 22-17 last year. Lost a good bit on the mound from that team last year. But Jack Baggett is a kid who's committed to Reed State, their catcher, who handles the pitching staff and has done so for last couple of years. He's we saw him at our South Alabama preseason All-State, and he's a really good defensive catcher. He'll look to anchor the middle of that order this year for Pike Liberal Arts. Jackson Bowen, Cole Garrett, guys who have had some experience at the varsity level. Those are guys that are going to be expected to take on a little bit of expanded roles this year after Pike Liberal Arts lost some pieces, but it just seems like winning is kind of in their DNA down in the Troy area. So we expect Pike Liberal Arts to not to have a rebuild, to continue their success this year in their 3rd season at the AHSAA level. At number 8, we have a team who I think you are pretty high on, and that's North Sand Mountain, coming off of a strong 22-10 season, reaching the Sweet 16. I think they got put out by Vincent in, I think, a pretty close series for how good Vincent was last year. They bring back key pieces like Luke Reed, Carson Harvey, Jackson Burgess, Cooper Pierce, Levi Burgess. Those are just a few of the returnees that come back.
Yep.
They won their second straight area championship last year. Had a, like I said, have a good bit coming back. So we're high on the Bison this year, and have them pegged at number 8 to start the season. And number 7 is Red Bay. Red Bay, another team who's had consistent playoff runs over the past few years in Class 2A. And we expect them to have another good year this year. They went 25-9 last year and reached the Elite 8. I think they got beat by Mars Hill Bible, I want to say, is who put them out. But nevertheless, Coach Donovan Hand does a great job with them, and we expect them to have a strong season led by, Jeremiah Thorne, Landon Louie, Aiden Pruitt, Carson McGee. They'll be strong on the mound this year, and we expect their offense to continue to get better over the course of the season. And number 6 is Vincent, the defending Class 2A state champions. Vincent, just a storybook season last year, coming as the 2025 state champ in Class 2A, losing. They lost a little bit of production from last year. Aiden Poe obviously is the big name who they're going to have some big shoes to fill, but it doesn't hurt to bring back Landon Archer, who was just is a big time prospect for them. Gonna be asked to catch and be their top arm on the mound. Calvin Johnson is another guy who
Megatron.
Yeah, there you go, Megatron. Calvin Johnson will be another returning starter for the Yellow Jackets as they look to defend their 2A state championship in 2026. And number 5 is Reeltown. Reeltown is coming off of a Final Four appearance, got beat by Pike Liberal Arts in the semifinals last year, went 20-14, and we expect them to be kind of right in the mix once again this year, led by obviously Jamarcus Smith, just a high-level arm, can reach the mid-90s with his fastball.
Reed Wood,
yeah, a bunch of other guys they have coming back. And number 4 is GW Long, led by Blaine Wood, and Coach Drew Miller does a great job there. Was doing some research on them for the 2A preview that's coming out here, I think Friday. 17 state championships. Coach Miller has 5 of them. Just a historic program that's got rich tradition, and they're always going to be there in the thick of it in Class 2A, and they've got a good bit coming back this year, if not the majority of their production from last year coming back. So the Rebels are going to be strong once again this year, after they went 17-10 and reached the Sweet 16. At number 3 is Lindsay Lane Christian. The Lions reached the Sweet 16 last year, went 19-17. I think got beat by Summerton Christian. I think either Summerton Christian or Vince. I think it's Summerton Christian. Nonetheless, they bring back a ton this year. Lane Jones, Wyatt Wallace, Grayson Miller, Cooper Abernathy are just a few guys who bring back production.
And just about all of them are 28s and 29s, man. They're young. They're young.
They are. And they're young, but they're experienced too, I think is what was something that was in their preview. So we expect Lindsay Lane to have a great year this year, and they start at number 3. And number 2 is the Purple Cats of Ayrton. Ayrton is another team who has a chance to potentially be a strong threat to win the 2A state championship this year. They won it 2 years ago. Last year, they went 25-11. They were ranked inside the top 5 in Class 2A for the majority of the season, and they reached the Sweet 16 last year. But they'll be looking to push deeper this season, bringing back a ton of returners. Wells Gainey, the Easton Kilpatrick, and they've got a bunch, and that's just to name a few. So Ayrton, once again, it's Ayrton and GW Long again. It's just a consistent rivalry down in the southern part of the state of who kind of comes out of the South. Both teams are going to be stacked, but Ayrton comes in at number 2, and then at the top spot this year, coming in at number 1 to start the season in Class 2A, we have Mars Hill Bible. The Panthers bring back a good bit of production from last year's. I think they reached the Final Four last year, went 23-17. and return a veteran group this year. Noah Handback, Cody Willis, Luke Fowler, Malin Moore, who was a shortstop last year, started as a freshman. Bo Willis, and then you add back, I think what really hurt them last year was Brooks Campbell not being full go on the mound. I think this year he's back, and he was their number 2 as a freshman, and so he missed his sophomore year. But coming into his junior season, I think he's full go. So that's a big piece for Marshall Bible to bring back, and just in addition to the returners that they bring back this year, only bolsters their chance to be one of the main contenders in Class 2A to start the season.
Yeah, and taking a look at, I think we've got 9 teams listed right outside the top 10 in 2A. You've got Bayshore Christian after their first-round exit last year. Obviously, a traditionally strong program out of the southern part of the state. Belgreen lost in the first round last year. They do bring back some key pieces from last year's season, so they're hoping they're going to lean on that experience. Cedar Bluff is another team that was ousted in the first round last year, but looking for big things this year. Cottonwood, they did lose a good bit from last year's Elite 8 team. They finished at 22-8. Cottonwood is a definite team that really, they could be in that top 10 very, very easily. Decatur Heritage lost a good bit from last year's team. I know that Ford Sparkman, big left-handed bat that they're going to be counting on as a run producer. Again, lost a lot to graduation, but Decatur Heritage will again be a tough out in 2A after their Sweet 16 appearance last year. Moving on down to Pleasant Valley. Pleasant Valley also got beat in the first round last year at 17-12. That is a team in Pleasant Valley that when we were talking about all this, that's a team that I think we both really like. They bring back a lot of players. Peyton Mann, Wesley Wheeler, Dallas Roper, Dixon Duncan, Cooper Dugall, and Jake Barnwell. That's a lot of production back for Pleasant Valley. So that's obviously a team to watch. Ranburn made it to the Sweet 16 last year. They sit right outside the top 10. Summerton Christian, lost a fair amount of talent from last year's team, but they're gonna be a tough out. There's no doubt about it. Obviously, at the top of that pitching rotations, Colton Glass, young kid that has already thrown a ton of innings for Summerton Christian. We will see them in our small town showdown the third weekend of the season. They went 24-9 last year in the Elite 8 appearance. And Westminster of Oak Mountain had a Sweet 16 appearance. I think they're in the same area with Vincent, if I'm not mistaken. They finished as a runner-up last year and then went on a roll and made it to the Sweet 16. And again, will be a team to follow in 2A this year. So that'll wrap us up with 2A. We will bump right over to 3A now and get cranked up here. This is one, in my opinion, that outside of 6A, I think 3A was as tough to rank as any of them. So with that being said, let's go ahead and bump over to 3A and see what we've got there in top 10.
All right. Moving on to 3A, we'll start at number 10. 1 second. Let me get everything squared away.
There has been a lot of notes taken here, y'all, in case you can't tell. We're clicking and going to everything. A lot of Google spreadsheets and things. So there's a lot on this podcast right now.
Yep. All right. So starting at number 10 in Class 3A, we have Winfield. Just a huge season last year. The Winfield went 33-8, reached the Final Four. I think lost some of that production from last year, but I think who's Brandon Whitley, physical left-handed hitter, was at our Huntsville preseason ID. He's a key piece coming back for them. They'll look for some newcomers this year. They start the season at number 10. After reaching the Final Four last year and losing to Gordo in just a great series in the semifinals to end their season. And number 9,
area opponents also, Gordo and Winfield. Yep.
At number 9, we have Thorsby coming off of a 26-10 season. They got beat in the first round last year, but expect them to to have a strong season. They got beat by Lee Scott Academy in 3 games, so it was a close series, and expect them to build on last year's postseason experience and move deeper into the postseason this year. And number 8 is Collinsville, who brings back a lot, especially offensively. Collinsville went 20-10 last year, reached the Sweet 16. Obviously, Gavin Lang is a key returner for them, and has been I think a varsity starter since 8th grade. He'll be a big piece offensively and on the mound. Mason McAteer, Jeremiah Killen are familiar names who have a good bit of varsity experience.
Jeremiah Killian wearing number 99 on the baseball field.
Yep. Can swing it too.
Yes, he can.
So they've got a good bit of 2027s, and those guys have kind of come through the program playing as freshmen, and now they're juniors. They'll be good this year, and they'll be good next year. So they come in at number 8 to start the season. And number 7 is Wicksburg. Wicksburg, was a team who we kind of talked about. Are they going to be in? Are they going to be out? Last year they went 16-11, reached the Sweet 16. I think got beat by.
I can tell you just a minute.
Got beat by Prattville Christian in 2 games, but that game 2 was 5-3. And outside of losing Drew Cohen, who went to Chipola, I think they've returned pretty much everything from that team, highlighted by I think it's Seth Williams and John Michael Mordecai are 2 guys who were big pieces last year, and they have, I think, a good chunk of other players from last year's team coming back. So they come in at number 7 to start the season. And number 6 is the Altamont School. Altamont last year went 16-7, got beat in the first round, but got beat by St. James, and it was a pretty close series. Got beat 7-2 and dropped game 2 8-7. But we heard from a coach last year, 6A coach, who had played Altamont and a really good program at 6A. And said, Altamont, they were very impressive. We played them, and they're a really good 3A school. They're a team to watch, and you look at their roster up and down, guys that we've seen at showcases, at tournaments. Obviously, last year having a good record going. What was it, 16-7?
Right.
They have a good bit coming back. Cruz Keneal, Aubrey Sanders. We think the Altamont School is a team that could have a breakout year going into 2026. And they start the season at number 6. Getting into the top 5, we have Prattville Christian. A pretty good bit of turnover, losing. Last year's team was just a juggernaut full of seniors who are now playing at the next level with Ethan Walls. But you bring back Jack Diefendorfer, Blake Bowman. That's one of you're probably not going to find a better 1-2 punch at the top of that rotation. They'll look for some newcomers, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But we think Prattville Christian starting off in the top 5 after last year's season, after going 35-5, reaching the semifinals and getting beat by Glenwood in that awesome 3-game series. Ultimately fell short of reaching the state championship, but this year start the season at number 5 behind those 2 big-time arms. At number 4, we have Lee Scott Academy, who comes in at number 5. Last year they had a 25-13 record and reached the Elite 8. I think they got put out by Prattville Christian in the quarterfinals in 3 games. Lost that deciding game 3 9-6, and returned a good chunk from last year's team. So we expect Lee Scott to just to continue to get better in their second year at the AHSAA level.
I like their arms also.
Yep, they've got some good arms. Barrett Cook, Braden Martin.
Yep.
They should have good depth on the mound. Getting into the top 3 in Class 3A, we have St. James. St. James, last year reached
Elite 8 by Glenwood.
Yeah. Went 20-12, reached the Elite 8. They lose Tabor Alford, and I think they return pretty much everything else. Charlie Cutler, big time arm for them, big stick in the lineup. Mason Craig, Jimmy Dickens, just a ton of production from the past 2 years for St. James that comes back for 2026. And they've got high aspirations going into the 2026 season. They should be balanced on both sides of the ball. So they come in at number 3. And then getting into the top 2, at number 2, we have Gordo, the Green Wave, led by Coach Pate, just a program filled with rich tradition. They went 26-17, finished as a state runner-up. And did they lose anybody?
They lost their starting center fielder, and everybody else is back.
Neil, wasn't it?
Yep. They lost their starting center fielder, and they've got everybody else back. And they were all last year. They were all pretty much 2027s. They were sophomore heavy, and I'm telling you, this is a team, the Green Wave, a team that I love this year. And if I don't say that, my Gordo people will get mad at me anyway. But I truly believe that this is a team. Obviously, we've got them ranked number 2. I don't think it's a mystery who we're going to have at number 1. Yeah. But listen, we've got Gordo up there high because they're going to return just about every single piece from a state runner-up finish last year.
Noah McDaniel, Rainer Russell, shortstop for them. I think John Driver, Colin Pate. Yeah. So
they're all
back from the Green Wave.
Yeah.
And so we move on to the top team in Class 3A to start the season, and that is Glenwood. The Glenwood Gators, last year's Class 3A state champion. I mean, just rolled through 3A. Just a storybook season when they went 33-5. They beat Gordo in the state finals. They bring, there's not many people that are going to be able to replace a Mason McCrane or a Tyler Sykes, but they return a legitimate number 1 in Hudson Campbell. Carter Judah and Cal Lawrence are going to anchor the middle of that lineup. They're going to be able to swing it. And their 2028 class is really strong too. Guys like Nathan Malone, who's in the top 10, Red English and Sawyer Moss are guys who we feel like could have a breakout 2026 campaign as sophomores. So, it's not a rebuild year for Glenwood. They just reload. They've got talent up and down their roster. But I probably wasn't last year. It seemed like they were probably the clear-cut favorite in 3A. But I think there's 3A. There are many contenders, I think, going into the season.
Yeah, and I said that. I've mentioned already. 3A and 6A to me have been the most difficult to rank. There are some deep classifications. Looking at some of those schools outside the top 10 that make this such a deep class. Cottage Hill Christian went 14-12 last year, got beat in the first round. Elkmont was 18-12, also got beat in the first round last year. Flomaton made it to the Sweet 16. I believe Flomaton lost to Lee Scott Academy. All right. They lost to Lee Scott Academy last year, went 17-11. Fife won 20 games last year, got beat in the first round. Geraldine missed the playoffs last year, but Geraldine returned some pretty key pieces in the 2026 season, and their aspirations are high. People like obviously Jordan Langford, man, just a talented 28. They've also that we talked about Lindsay Lane being so young. This group here, Geraldine, they're just as young. John Beck Wade's a 2028. Cooper Rogers a 2028. Braxton Franklin's a 2029. You've got Reed Wade and Lane Rowell that are also 2029s that they're going to depend on. So you know what? None of us know, is this the year or not for Geraldine, but I can tell you that's going to be a team to follow the next few years without a doubt. JB Pennington made it to the Sweet 16 last year, finished with a 20-15 record. Lauderdale County, they made the Sweet 16s. Coach Looney does a great job. That team came a long way on the back half of the season, but they finished in the Sweet 16 last year. They sit right outside the top 10. Oakman 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 did not make the postseason last year, and I guess you could put a little asterisk by that because they're in an area with Gordo and Winfield. And listen, Gordo and Winfield, they're going to be in a fight when they play Oakman. Oakman is a team that we've highlighted several times. They're a veteran team, but they are a very young team. They've been playing a lot of the same guys for years. We had Coach Hall on a couple weeks ago. But Oakman will be a tough out in 3A. Phil Campbell, after a Sweet 16 appearance last year, they sit outside the top 10. Perennial power Piedmont, the Bulldogs, got beat in the first round last year by Gordo, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Gordo that beat them. Gordo beat Piedmont, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I think we labeled that like a first round of winners, because that's all Gordo and Piedmont do is they just win. Providence Christian down around the Dothan area made it to the Sweet 16 last year. They set outside the top 10. Montgomery Academy missed the playoff, and this is a team I think Austin really went to bat for. Montgomery Academy. They're in an area with St. James and Prattville Christian, yeah. So they're a lot like Oakman, man. They are in a very, very tough area. It's going to be hard to get out of that area, but any of those two teams that get out of that area have a chance to make a deep run. Thomasville, once again, a deep run, made it to the Sweet 16 after winning 20 games last year. Vinemont made it to the Elite Eight. Last year, they won 26 games and return a fair amount of pieces from last year's team. And then Whitesburg Christian, they did make an Elite Eight run last year. They lost a lot of pieces, but they've got some returners back: Davis Parks, Cason Hill, Joseph Hages, Chase Utley. Those are some guys that they're going to be depending on, along with some underclassmen: Blake Holland, Henry Nawahid, and Haynes Ainsworth. So those are some guys they're going to be depending on. Again, they lost a lot. Coach Talega does a good job. Whitesburg Christian will be well coached, and they'll be able to compete in 3A without a doubt. So that gets us through 3A, man. So now we'll move straight to 4A. A lot of talking tonight for Austin and I, man.
But we're used to having people come on and letting them talk.
We've been letting them talk, but we got to do all the talking tonight. So we'll jump into 4A here. We'll get cranked up with 4A. Austin, you can get us going.
Yep. 4A is another strong classification. We'll start off at number 10, who we've got the Bobcats coming in after going. 1 second, let me get my sheet fixed. I think they reached the Sweet 16 last year. I think they beat Bayside in round one, but ultimately got beat by Bibb County to close out their season. Yeah, went 23-17. I think they were ranked number 4 going into the playoffs, but this ran into a Bibb County team that we felt like was kind of destined to make the state finals. But this year, they'll look to make it past the Sweet 16 and push further with some key pieces coming back from last year's team. At number 9 is Central Florence. Central Florence is another team, reached the Elite Eight last year, had a good run, won over 20 games, went 24-15. Reed Bruce coming back is probably one of the top uncommitted players in the 2026 class, but I think he's their number 1 coming back on the mound, and then at the plate, he's a big time run producer for Central, and he'll need to be that this year if Central Florence wants to make a deeper run throughout Class 4A. So they start at number 9 to start the season. At number 8 is Westbrook Christian. Westbrook Christian, who won the state, who finished as the runner-up in 2 years ago. I think that was 3. They were in 3A at the time, weren't they?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. So they move up.
They were going to be in our small town showdown last year, but got bumped up to 4. Yeah.
Yeah. Last year missed the postseason. They were in a tough area. Got put out of the playoffs by Etowah and Hoax Bluff. So Westbrook Christian missed the playoffs, but they brought a lot back from the team when they went from the state finals to last year. They didn't make the playoffs last year. They bring back pretty much, there are a lot of familiar faces back from that runner-up team from 2 years ago. The two obvious guys, Brody Johnson and Brody Blevins, are two true shortstops that'll play up the middle for them, have anchored the middle of the order for them all year long. Brody Blevins was a shortstop. As a freshman. He has tons of varsity experience. We think Westbrook Christian is poised to have a bounce back season this year, and they've got a bunch of other returners. They lose.
Talk to me about Key and K.
Key and K.
We messed that up enough last year.
Yeah. So they'll be searching for some arms, but I know Johnson and Blevins will throw. They've got some other pieces. Gavin Beaver is a name who moves in. Has got all the mid-80s fastball. Got good stuff.
I think I saw where he tore his ACL.
Oh, really?
I think I may be wrong. I think I saw that. Yes.
Either way, Westbrook Christian should be poised to have a bounce back year in class 4A. And number 7 is Trinity Presbyterian. Just a consistent power at the class 4A level. Last year they went 25-10 and reached the state quarterfinals. They got beat by Oak Grove. And that game too was a 1-run game, but ultimately got put out in the Elite 8 last year. They lose Fleming Hall, who was a big piece for what they did for, he was a 4-year starter for them at the plate and on the mound. But they've got enough pieces back to where that they can contend at a high level in class 4A. They've Lance Sharpless. Lance Sharpless is a name that comes to mind, and they've got other pieces too. Mitchell, Boswell, Patton Mitchell. So I mean, it seems like they're always going to have the talent to be able to contend deep into the playoffs. We'll see how the 2026 season shapes for Trinity. And number 6 is Orange Beach, another team who missed the playoffs last year, but come into 2026 with just a talent-filled roster. We did their preview last week as I try to pull it up. But like I said, missed the playoffs, but still had a strong season, went 20-10. They're in that tough area with Bayside Academy and Satsuma, who's the second team who was able to reach the playoffs. But you look at their roster up and down. Colton Boyd, you got to start with 2027 catcher Colton Boyd, who's committed to Southern Miss. He's started as a catcher for them since his 8th grade season. He's a top 15 prospect in the 2027 class. Braden Hood is a utility type player for them. Matthew Hoover should be their game 1 guy. Ward Hickman, Gentry Roberts, Ben Pugh are top returning players. And then their younger class, they've got a good group of sophomores: Jacob Thomas, David Switson, Campbell Tillman, our underclassmen who have a chance to factor into the lineup for the Makos. And then the big name, kind of the buzzy name this year coming out of our preseason events, Ethan O'Mara. I think O'Mara is kind of the what would you call it? Just the wild card for them. If he's on for them, I think their Orange Beach is upside. I think, especially in a south part of Class 4A where it's kind of up in the air. I think Orange Beach has a chance to really jump up and really grab that opportunity and potentially make a strong run throughout the playoffs. But there's still a ton of baseball to be played. But we like how Orange Beach sets up going into the 2026 season.
Hey, I'll say this: if Matthew Hoover is their number 1, that's pretty impressive, because what we saw out of O'Meara on the mound was disgusting.
Yeah,
I'll say that. Yep.
Hoover was good at our. You didn't see him throw. He's at our Yellowhammer State games. He's going to Mobile.
Right. Yeah, I know I don't mean that disrespectful towards Matthew at all. I'm just that tells you what we think of O'Meara. He's
Getting into our top 5, you have the Etowah Blue Devils, another consistent program. Made the Final Four last year before falling to Deshler. In 2 pretty close games, got dropped game 1, 2-1. Were you at that series?
I sure was. Yes.
Yeah.
And Etowah, their expectations never change from year to year.
Yeah. Losing Jameson Sissom obviously is going to be shoes to fill. But you can name the returners, but Baylor Morrison is a key piece coming back for them. They've I think Avery Haynes. They've got a bunch coming back this year and are shaping up to have another good year in 2026.
You've got Jackson Morgan, Ethan Mendoza, Brock Billingsley, arm they're expecting. Avery Haynes, you mentioned, has been up to 91. Landon Ward, Sloan Browning.
Avery Haynes has been up to 91.
That's what is here in the Avery Haynes 27, 6'2", right-handed pitcher, up to 91 this spring. That was in their preview, and their preview hasn't been published yet. So
okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why I don't have it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I wasn't trying to throw you off there, Austin. My bad.
Yeah, you're good. I was buying you time because I knew in the back you were going to pull up that preview.
Yeah.
I was trying to
there's so much on the back end tonight, y'all. So please bear with us.
Yeah. So as you can see, at number 4, we have Oak Grove. Just Oak Grove, who I think they were ranked number 1 for a good for the majority of the season. I know they were ranked number 1 going into the playoffs. They went 30-5 last year, reached the Final Four, but ultimately fell short of reaching the state finals after getting beat in 2 one-run games to Bibb County. That was a fun series. I remember following it on Game Changer, but that was a great series. Ultimately, Oak Grove comes in at number 4 to start this season. I think lost Jeremiah Fuller, who's at UAB now. But still have, I think Wiley Hicks is a key returner coming back for them. So the Oak Grove is shaping up once again to be a real threat in Class 4A once again to start the season. Getting into the top 3, it's probably not. It doesn't take a wild guess to guess who number 1 is, but we'll get to number 3, and that is the Madison County Tigers, who you possibly may have plans of maybe going and seeing next week on opening day, that Thursday, if things work out. But Madison County, I know you are very high on them, and so am I. But you being up in kind of that neck of the woods, led by Coach Butch Weaver. The Tigers reached the Sweet 16 last year, got put out by a veteran Haley team in 2 games that were decided by 3 runs. So played them competitively, and I think kind of the strength in what Madison County is going to be able to do this spring is the depth that they bring back. Cole Mullins, I think, what did he have, a sub?
Like 0.75 ERA or something like. I think it was like 11-1 or 11-0 last year. Yeah.
Jace Duckett, who's the number 2 overall prospect in the junior class in Alabama, committed to Alabama, is an upper 80s left-handed pitcher. Who I think is going to be full strength to go on the mound this spring. He can swing it as well. Keegan McClure is another big time arm in that rotation. Connor Drake should be there, a reliable piece for them in the middle of the order, playing shortstop and also providing some innings on the mound. Eli Cantrell, Lawson Price, Levi Cooper, and Jackson Helton are some key returners for the Tigers. But it's probably going to be tough to score a lot of runs on Madison County this spring with all the pitching that they have coming back. So we're pretty high on the Tigers going into this season as they come in at number 3. At number 2 is Bibb County, the runner-up from last year's Class 4A State Championship Series. Bibb County went 30-12 last year, reached. Like I said, finished as the runner-up in 2025. They bring back Braden Cash on the mound, right-handed pitcher, shortstop, who's upper 80s on the mound, was just a competitive Game 3 starter for them, and is going to take on a bigger role this spring, which he will be ready for. He's, like I said, a junior headed to Jacksonville State. Outfielder, infielder, right-handed pitcher Ethan McMillan is another big-time returner for them. Going to play a big factor as a two-way player. He's headed to Shelton. Cage Watkins and Scooter Sanders are a couple more upperclassmen. So there's some familiarity coming back for the Choctaws as they hope to get back to the state championship this spring. They'll look to some newcomer. I think Daniel Stringfellow is another name who's back. Xavier Ryan, I think I saw on the roster. They'll and Bibb County has consistently just continued to be a threat in Class 4A year after year. So we're expecting the same this year as they start at number 2. And then at number 1, the defending state champs from Class 4A, about as complete as a team as you'll find, especially at the Class 4A level, led by Garrett Reed, the returning Class 4A Player of the Year. He's a senior headed to Sanford. They've also got Camden Fuller, Price Thornton, Nash Adams, Brady McKinney, Dylan Olive, and Austin Hubbard are 2 players who move in to add to the depth that they have coming back. George Youngblood, Warner Johnson, Jay Murner, Austin King. We talked to Coach Hall about having to move around the graphic to fit all his returners on there. I had to work some magic to get all these players on the graphic for Desher because they have got a ton coming back from last year's team that won the state championship. They went 33-11, and I think we had them number 1 to start the season last year, which I think we had them at number 2.
Because I messed up. That's exactly right. Yes, I had American Christian. Yeah,
they defaulted to number 1, and then but went on to win the state championship. This year, they start out as the true number 1, and no doubt they're going to have the target on their back going into the season. But they've got the arms, they've got the bats. So we'll see if we'll see how it shapes out. But certainly going into the season, Desher has to be the team to beat in Class 4A.
And Deschler's got to fight complacency. I mean, nothing's won right now. But would you venture to say that was the easiest clear-cut number 1 for us in any of the polls we did? I mean, absolutely. Yeah. But again, let's look at some of the teams that are outside the top 10. You've got Alexandria. Coach Welch does a great job there. They very well could have been in the top 10, and I will be completely surprised if you don't see the Valley Cubs in the top 10 after the first couple of weeks of the season.
I was watching them. I was so bored this past Saturday. I was watching them, watching a game changer feed, them playing a 4-inning umpire scrimmage against Oxford.
Yeah, and that's again, they're solid every single year. They won 21 games last year, Sweet 16 appearance. You got Bayside Academy, we mentioned earlier. They made it to the first round last year. Cordova went on a pretty magical run in the playoffs. Cordova finished in the Sweet 16. They again entered the playoffs with a losing record, but again, it's about getting hot, playing your best at the right time. Fayette County. I think Fayette County is a team to keep an eye on this year. They got beat in the first round last year, but that's a team that we need to keep an eye on. Haleyville lost a ton from last year's team. There's a big turnover there at Haleyville, but I know that they're very confident heading into this season. Did make the Elite 8 last year after winning 27 games. Keep an eye on Haleyville. Hoax Bluff, you mentioned them earlier. Them and Etowah came out of that tough area. Hoax Bluff won 20 games last year, got beat in the first round. Munford won 16 games last year, had an early exit in the first round. New Brockton won 15 games, was eliminated in the first round as well. The Gators of Satsuma made it to the Sweet 16 last year, winning 20 games. They had a really interesting and really impressive, I guess is a better word, impressive playoff run last year. We'll see the Gators in our South Alabama Showdown, the second season. Tallahassee, the Elite 8 last year after winning 23 games. Tallahassee's another one of those schools, another one of those towns that the expectations do not change. Saw Tallahassee and Trinity last year in the playoffs. Obviously, Georgia Tech commit Brew Milner leads the way there at Tallahassee. W.S. Neal rounds us out there in the top 10, or excuse me, those outside the top 10. They made a Sweet 16 appearance. Who's the catcher there?
Where?
Yeah.
Where?
What is it?
No, at where?
Oh, W.S. Neal. I'm sorry.
Oh, Easton Grace.
Easton Grace. That's right. Yeah. So he'll be back this year to lead that group. So again, that's about 10 teams outside the top 10 in 4A to keep an eye on. Again, this gets tougher and tougher every week that we do it. So, and again, we're doing all this based off returners, based off what they did last year. Again, a game hasn't been played yet. All of this will work itself out. So with that, we got 3 classifications to go. We'll jump to 5A.
1 second. All right.
Ooh.
We start off at number 10, and class 5A is last year. Class 5A was one of my favorite classes to follow, especially getting ACA and St. Paul's in the state finals was about as good of a matchup as you could find. I mean, it certainly lived up to the hype. But we'll get into it. At number 10 is Springville. The Tigers come in last year. They were ranked number 1 going into the playoffs. They went 29-7, reached the Elite Eight, got beat by Lawrence County in the state quarterfinals, but returned a few key pieces, one being Grant Martinez, a physical left-handed hitter who anchors the heart of that order. Is going to drive in a bunch of runs for them this year. And then Ryan King is a shortstop and a quality arm for them on the mound. Charlie Hare is a 2027 outfield right-handed pitcher who I think was hurt for a little bit of the season last year. Didn't get I don't know how much he didn't play when I saw him. I think he was hurt, but he's a toolsy outfielder who should make a big impact this year for the Tigers. We get into at number 9, and that is Madison Academy, another powerhouse program in the state of Alabama. The Mustangs reached the Final Four last year, went 35-9. I think Coach Presley will probably tell you they lost a good bit from last year's team. I think he said that it was their largest senior class in program history. So there's a lot to fill, but we know that Madison Academy just continues to breed next level prospects, and there's certainly some talented younger players coming up the pipeline, and one of those being Grady Moore, who was a freshman last year, played a key piece for them. He'll be asked to pitch, to hit in the middle of their order, driving runs, and be a key piece for them on the mound. Weston Todd is an arm who has if he's as good as we've seen him be, and he has a chance to be a legitimate number 1 for that rotation. And then Chase Harris is a freshman for them who's a name to know this spring. For the Mustangs, at number 8, we have UMS Wright. UMS Wright comes off a season where they went 19-14 and reached the Sweet 16. Last year, got beat by St. Paul's Episcopal
I think it was the Elite Eight.
Elite Eight. Yep, you're correct. Got beat. I think it went to. Did they get swept? Or
no,
I'm looking at
went 3 games. St. Paul's beat them 2 out of 3.
I think that game 3 was 2-1 too, so it was a competitive 3-game series. So and UMS Wright brings back Ty Waters, key piece for them, Manning Amorde, Samuel Davis, and they've got more coming back for those. That's a good trio to have at the top leading the way for UMS Wright. Number 7 is Russellville, who comes off a season where they went 25-12 and reached the Sweet 16. Last year they got put out by American Christian, took ACA to 3 games. I remember watching that game 3 on the NFHS, got beat 9-7. Ultimately it was just too much offense for American Christian, but coming back this year, Russellville should continue to be one of the top programs in the state. Braden Intrican is obviously going to be a key piece to what they do, both at the plate and on the mound. Russellville is a program where they can lose some pieces, but that they're going to continue, just like Madison Academy, that they're going to continue to fill and just continue to deliver prospects to the next level. And number 6 is Briarwood Christian. The Lions come off a season where they went 20-16 and reached the Sweet 16. Last year they got beat by St. Paul's Episcopal in 3 games. Got beat. They won game 1 12-8, and then dropped game 2 and 3. Both of those games by 1 run. Got beat 8-7 and 6-5. I think it was played down at St. Paul's. So that, if that result tells you, how good they were last year, and they've got a good few pieces coming back from last year's team. Parker Daniels hitting in the middle of that order, headed to West Alabama. Houston Hartsfield, who's going to UAH, an outfield left-handed pitcher, and then sophomore right-handed pitcher, third baseman Ivan Hand, who we saw in the preseason up to 92. I think he was an all-state selection as a freshman last year, had a really good season for a freshman. What does year 2 look like for him? We shall see. But Broward Christian certainly is a team to know. It's a team to watch for, especially in that Birmingham area in 2026. Getting into the top 5, we have Demopolis, who we're able to have Coach Tucker on, and he was we talked about just the amount that they have coming back this year, going 22-11 last year, reaching the Sweet 16. Expectations are high for the Tigers. They should lean on their pitching, and they've got a lot of it. I think he said, 5 players who are already signed to go play at the next level, and they've got some players who are uncommitted, who can play at the next level. Colton Colgrove, Josiah Colgrove, Jack Pritchett, Jake Powell, Bryce McElroy, and Braxton Bice are 6 key players coming back from last year's team. I think they got beat. They got beat by Alberta last year.
Alberta beat them,
3-1 and 8-2 in the Sweet 16. But expectations are heightened this year coming into the season. So Demopolis starts at number 5 going into the season. And number 4 is Faith Academy. And probably on paper, Faith Academy can go toe-to-toe or exceed the level of talent that most of these teams have on paper. I think we both would agree. Faith Academy, went 22-7 last year, reached the Sweet 16, and bring back a bunch of that returning production. Willimon, who's headed to Bishop State, Braden Wright, who's headed to Mississippi College, Cooper Ortiz and Cooper Smith and Carlos Ortiz are a pair of uncommitted seniors. Christian Freeman is another arm who's headed to Mississippi Gulf Coast, as is right-handed pitcher Grayson Finch, who's a junior. And then the 2027, 2027s, who, Brody Wilson, who's a top 5 player in the 27 class, who's committed to Auburn, can run his fastball into the low 90s. Eli Quinley, a physical right-handed hitter who was a future gamer last year. You even scroll down, Wyatt Pippin. I mean, they've got the pieces at the plate and on the mound. So we'll see if they're able to put it all together. But I think we're both very high on Faith Academy going into this season. So they come in at number 4, and number 3 is the Northside Rams, who we will see in the Kickoff Classic here in about a week and a half. Northside went 23-10-1 last year. They got dealt a tough draw coming out of the gate, going on the road to Springville. But I was able to be at those first 2 games, and it was a great series. But ultimately, Northside fell short. They dropped game 3, 5-4. We're so close to pulling off that big road series, but they come back into this season with highly motivated and have a chance to make some real noise in Class 5A. You start with Alex Keitlinger, Judd Sanford,
Austin Keitlinger, Austin. You said Alex.
Not yet, maybe in a couple years, but Austin Keitlinger, Judd Sanford, Bennett Green, Brock Green, a lot of returners back from last year. So they're definitely a team to follow.
Pull up that comment for us, man. Yeah. All we did was talk about how talented they are, and they're as talented as anybody in the state. And there's no disrespect whatsoever. We can assure you. We talked about them. So, yeah. All right.
Getting on to number 2, we have St. Paul's Episcopal, who finished as the state runner-up last year, dropping that series to American Christian. Obviously, the Saints went 28-12-1 and are led by John Stowers, the number 2 player in the 2026 class, who's headed to Auburn. Tate Johnston is a shortstop who's also headed to Auburn. So they've got some frontline talent coming back this season.
Click them up there, will you? There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
St. Paul's. So yeah, St. Paul's finished as a runner-up, so they'll certainly have aspirations of getting back and having a chance to claim the Class 5A state championship in 2026. And then staying at number one, where they finished last year is American Christian. The Patriots, obviously losing Eric Hines, who hit 20 home runs. That's not many people who you can't replace 20 home runs. So that's a big piece to fill. But, Clayton Rice, got to fill me in. Caleb McCausland, Drew Jackson, BJ
Hunter
Gardner,
Elmore.
Hunter Elmore.
Yeah.
They've talent up and down the roster, and seniors and sophomores and juniors. I mean, it's spread throughout the roster, spread throughout the graduating classes. So,
Pull up that comment from Alex Stewart there, because he is correct.
No doubt,
it's tough, and Austin, and to show you that depth here. We got a lot of teams outside the top 10. I'm gonna try to move through this as quick as possible because there's so many teams that deserve a mention, that could be ranked. And we can only rank 10 of them. You've got Andalusia, first round exit last year, Arab, they're going to be solid this year. First round exit last year, Boaz, the Pirates lost to Scottsboro last year in the first round. Charles Henderson, another first round exit last year after winning 20 games, had a marked improvement last year. Douglas got beat in the first round last year. As well up here in North Alabama. Alberta, we talked about Alberta, excuse me. They went on a magical run last year, made it to the Final Four. They lose some pieces, but again, won 27 games last year. They sit outside the top 10. Elmore County, Coach Dismukes and his group, that they're going to be a tough out anytime they step on the field. They made it to the Sweet 16 last year after winning 25 games. Headland, another notoriously strong program in the South, lost in the first round last year. Holtville, also lost in the first round last year as well. They won 15 games. Jacksonville, the Golden Eagles, made it to the Sweet 16 last year. They bring back some pieces from that team. Lawrence County, we've talked about Lawrence County. I think they made it. They made it to the Elite Eight last year. Had a couple big wins along the way. Leeds, the Green Wave, they won 24 games, made it to the Sweet 16. Another team to follow, Marbury. Okay, Marbury. Yes, made sure I pronounced that correct. They won 29 games last year, made it to the Elite Eight. I think they won was that against Faith Academy? No, who was that against? That they won 4-3 and 14-13. Was that Faith, or who was that they beat? I can't remember, but it was a big time win for them last year in the playoffs. Again, they lost a lot, but they're going to be solid again. Mobile Christian missed postseason last year, but they've got some really good pieces. And we've talked about this, and I even talked to Coach Fuller about it. Their arms, man, they've got a chance to pitch. I mean, they've got a chance to be really good on the mound. Moody is a team with about 5 or 6 guys returning that's going on to play at the next level. They got beat in the first round last year after winning 15 games. Scottsboro is a team that we discussed in depth that, I don't want to say that they're number 11, but they very well could be number 11. We discussed Scottsboro in depth because I think they return 7 or 8 of 9 starters. They do lose Trent Wilson from behind the plate, who's at Calhoun, and then they return all of their arms. They made
Nichols has apparently been up to 91, 92?
91, 89, 91, Brady Nichols. So, again, that's a team to watch. And Shelby County, Coach Hamrick, that's a hard-nosed team. You know what you're going to get from them every time out. Davis Rustin, Pennington, those guys, you know what you're going to get from Shelby County. They're going to be blue-collar. They're going to be hard-nosed. They did lose in the first round last year, won 17 games. So, again, 5A is really, really tough. But you heard Austin just take a step back and take a deep breath. As deep as 5A is, 6A is scary. I mean, 6A is legitimately, it is an animal this year. This one took us forever to get this 6A, how we liked it. And we're not just, we're not always in agreement with each other where somebody should be, where somebody shouldn't be. but I'm going to let Austin get us started in 6A and go through this juggernaut of top 10 teams, man.
All right. Starting at number 10 this year, we have Oxford, the Yellow Jackets, coming off of a season where they went 22-11 and reached the first round of state playoffs. Obviously, about number one player in the state in today's updated 2026 rankings, Rocco Maniscalco, but they've got some other returning pieces offensively. Charlie Maniscalco, Marcus Lawler, Cannon Whitman. So they'll be able to swing it once again this year. Last year, like I said, got just a tough draw in the first round series you were able to be at against Mountain Brook on the road. And I think they got off to a good start, but ultimately I think Mountain Brook was able to win that series. But the Yellow Jackets come in at number 10. And that's a team who, we probably wouldn't be surprised if Oxford was able to push into contention and be a top 3 team, or it's just the ebbs and flows of the season, especially in 6A. So Oxford comes in at number 10. At number 9 is the team who won that area, Pell City and Oxford. Pell City was able to win that area last year and reached the Elite 8, going 21-14 last year. They return a good bit, pretty good bit of returning production last year. Carter Perry is a outfielder, left-handed pitcher who should hit at the top of that order. He's headed to Calhoun. Austin Daniel is headed to Gadsden State. Jacob Burgos is a physical middle-of-the-order hitter who's headed to Gadsden State as well. And then Baylor Fields up the middle, another senior who's headed to play at the next level at Coastal North. And then you have other returning upperclassmen, Jordan Perry, Thomas Bolton, Parker Rice, and Kason Smith. So a lot of returners, a lot of familiarity and experience on this roster, and their team, like many of these teams who we will be able to see opening weekend at the Kickoff Classic in Northport. So Pell City comes in at number 9. At number 8, we've got the Saraland Spartans, who did their preview. They just turned their preview in. But Coach Boutwell has got a lot to be excited about for this year's roster. Obviously, last year went 21-11, got put out in the second round in the Sweet 16 to Chelsea, the eventual runner-up in Class 6A. But they bring back Hudson Robbins, a catcher who's headed to CAC. Bryce Rivers and PJ Brown are strong additions to that order. Bryce Rivers is headed to Nicholls State. PJ Brown is maybe one of the fastest players in the state. Christian Farney is another big-time addition. Jacob Rowell is a returner. Brody Lambert comes over as well. And then Brody Jacoby and Cy Bird are some key returners for them. So a lot to be excited about for Saraland, as they're always going to have talent. And
Cade Mason, 0.7 ERA. Dietrich Butler. Yeah, Dietrich Butler on the mound.
Yeah.
You've got Christian Rice. I mean,
scroll down far enough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's Easton Cook. I mean, there's a lot of, that's some quality guys there,
No doubt.
Yeah.
So Saraland is definitely should be one of the top teams in the South, and we've got them pegged at number 8. Moving on to number 7, we have Hazel Green, the Trojans. We had Coach Dennis come on the show a couple of weeks ago. He talked about his club, and they're another team we'll see at the Kickoff Classic. They come off a season where they went 25-13 and lost in the first round, and have players who were on that team who come back from that team and are hoping to push further this year. Bryce Zimmerman, Andrew Beaverson, and Elijah Steele are a trio of returning seniors who are going to be big pieces to what they do this spring. Colton Clark, I think, was at the top of that rotation on the mound and has been an offensive piece for them since he was a freshman. Colton Bentley is another 2027 middle-of-the-order left-handed bat who brings back some valuable production. And then sophomore outfielder, left-handed pitcher Ty Hunter got his feet wet at the varsity level last year and is looking to take on a bigger role this spring. And they've got a bunch of other juniors. That 2027 class is really strong for them. Blaine White Hayden Shell, Colby Atkins, Garrett Mullins. They've got some upperclassmen talent, guys who have seen what it takes to be competitive at the Class 6A level. So they're going to lean on that experience and varsity returning production. So we're high on the Trojans going into this season, so they come in at number 7. At number 6, the Northridge Rams come off a season where they went. Hold on, I'm clicking around. I did Northridge. There they are. First year head coach Deacon Metters. He inherits a really talented roster in year 1. Last year they went 23-9 and got beat in the first round in one of the better first round matchups in the 6A playoffs. Got beat by Helena in a thrilling 3-game series. And the Jags return a bunch from last year's team, headlined by Alabama commit right-handed pitcher, first baseman Evan Malone, who's a low 90s right-handed pitcher on the mound, is a legitimate ace for them. And then behind him, Baron Gatlin is another senior arm who's headed to Itawamba. That's a really good 1-2 punch in that rotation. And then offensively, shortstop Mason Elam, I think seen everything but the
kitchen sink.
No,
was that it? He's been thrown everything. He's been
seen
throwing
everything but the
kitchen
wind
sink
or something.
Yeah, that's what it was.
He's I think a 5-year starter at the varsity level. He can. We've obviously very familiar with Mason. He can really hit. Going to hit at the top of that lineup and set the stage for the middle of the orders. He's a contact hitter, gets on base. He's definitely a leader for that team. And then White Wrath, a standout from our South Alabama preseason All-State, going to drive in a bunch of runs this year in the middle of that order. And then 2 more seniors, Grayson Cannon and Ford Cole, are a pair of senior returners who should play big roles for the Rams. And then John Pruitt hit in the middle of that order last year as a freshman and comes back as a sophomore, looking to have another big season for the Jags.
So you're telling me that we've gone on and on about these 5 teams, and they're only ranked 6 through 10?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, 6A, this might be as good as it's ever been. I think you could go 1 through 10 here, and any of these teams could be 1, 2, or 3. I mean, I legitimately believe that. So get us into the top 5, man. Let's see what you got in the top 5.
1 second. Got a lot going on.
I know.
At number 5, we've got the Spain Park Jaguars, coming off just a season, playing a tough schedule. They went 15-15, missed the postseason. But I remember 2 years ago we were talking, I think you talked to Coach Smith. He was very high on that 2027 class, and they were going to have a chance to play as freshmen, and they did. And they've got 2 years under their belt of playing at that varsity level. And I think that they are going to continue to reap the benefits of playing those younger players over the past couple of seasons. That 2027 class especially is very strong. But at the top, Reese Jones is about as reliable as a returner you can have coming back. Shortstop, right-handed pitcher who's headed to UAB. Looking at that 2027 class, you've obviously got Connor Greb, third baseman, left-handed bat who's committed to Auburn. Evan Taylor, who's their starting catcher last year, a former future gamer. Slade Bounds, a physical, toolsy outfielder hitting from the right side. Brody Bragg, another outfielder, and then just some other pieces. Joe Cross, who just committed.
Yeah. Every time I see Spain Park, Joe Cross hits.
He hits. Yep.
He hits. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Outfielder. He'll hit in the middle of that order. And then Nash Davis.
Oh gosh, forgot about Nash.
Yeah, do it all. I mean, just a stud. I saw he see his dunk the other day.
I saw that dunk. So you got quarterback, power forward, I guess. Obviously, he's a player on the basketball team. He can play. He can go.
Oh, and he's
first baseman, right-handed arm. Yeah.
And he's up to 93 as a sophomore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, he hit fourth for them last year as like a freshman. Yeah. And
I can't believe we hadn't even brought up Nash Davis yet. I'm
glad you mentioned. And then And then you add a piece like Hudson Franks, who I've seen Hudson Franks throw upper 80s arm, got a really good breaking ball. He just adds depth to that rotation. So we're really high on Spain Park, but it's the same story every year for that area in Birmingham. Spain Park, Helena, Pelham, and Chelsea. So it's certainly a gauntlet, but Spain Park is definitely a team that we're high on going into this season. So we'll see. And number 4, we've got Mountain Brook. The Spartans coming off of a season where they went 28-11. They reached the Elite 8. Obviously, you lose Caleb Barnett, but younger brother Paul Barnett is back. Should be once again starting shortstop for them and be a big time back end arm. We saw him up to 93 in January at our North Alabama preseason All-State. You bring back both the Hauser brothers, Luke and John. Hunter Davis is a left-handed hitter who showed some power at the plate last year as a junior. Samuel Estes seems like he's been hitting that order for the last 6 years. It feels like Bryant Goodell on the mound is going to be should be one of if not their best arm as a starter. And then Noah Crosby is another big time run producer. So they should be able to swing it, and they should have enough pieces on the mound this year. Go ahead.
Did you mention Jude Davidson? If you did, I'm sorry.
Jude Davidson just committed to Navy, another future gamer.
Yep.
So those are 2 good arms, and then you add Paul on the back end. So pretty balanced.
Yep. Man.
Moving on to number 3, we've got Chelsea, the runner-up from last year. Obviously, just we talked about just they're obviously the depth on the mound for them last year, and that's once again going to be the case again this year. At the top of that rotation, you bring back guys like Silas Osborne, Jackson Price, Grant Hill, just pieces that have been thrown in the fire and have Luke Neal has thrown some quality innings for them, so they're once again definitely going to lean on their pitching. But offensively, Aiden Craven hitting in that leadoff spot is a guy who really sets the tone for that lineup. Bryant Wisdom, he's no stranger to Bryant Wisdom, coming on last year during that playoff run as an 8th grader and just not playing like an 8th grader. He was on our junior future games team last year. We'll see what he has in store as a freshman. But once again, high on the Hornets going into 2026.
Brock Garrett will give them some innings. Cooper Morgan and a guy that I'm interested to see. You know who I'm going to say here, right?
I don't.
Left-handed pitcher Jordan Garcia.
Oh yeah. Yes.
I'm interested to see him. He could be a wild card for the Hornets. Interested to see him. Hope we see him that first weekend kickoff classic.
Yep, 100%. Good call out.
Yep.
So number 1 and number 2 in 6A. At number 2, we have the Homewood Patriots. Patriots, we had head Coach Hall on a couple of weeks ago on our podcast. Obviously we raved about the returners that they have coming back, led by Levi Nikolai. We talked to him about last year's season, how it ended. They went 30-9, reached the Sweet 16, but that series they got put out by the eventual state champs in Hartselle, and that was a big time series. I was able to be there for that first game, and then followed that game 3 where it was 2-1, finished 2-1, and Asher Dopel really took the ball and was lights out in that game 3. The Patriots bring back a ton from that team last year. Levi Nikolai, like I said, headed to Auburn. Oh, he's locked in. He's locked in. Jack Bland, who's headed to Calhoun. Cooper Mullins headed to Northwest Shoals. Ben Roberts, Cooper Sane, Will Siegel, Drew Susi, Sims Young, George Brockwell, Colin Crump, and Chappie Chaplow. All familiar names who have loads of varsity experience, playing good competition. Obviously, you win 30 games last year. That's great. But when you bring back a ton on both sides of the ball, you got to like your chances this year if you're Coach Hall, and they go into the season with a target on their back. And I think Coach Hall will probably tell you that they've got a chance to have a really special season. But that's why you play the games. You don't play them on paper. But we really like the Homewood Patriots going into 2026. And then at the top spot, back where they finished last year, the state champs in Class 6A, the Hartselle Tigers come in at number 1 after going 35-9 and beating Chelsea in that thrilling 3-game series, led by Coach Phillips. They bring back a ton off, especially on the offensive side. Asher Dopel, who we just talked about, is if we had a draft, he's probably my first pick of players who I want on my team. Cole Miles, Cruz Baker are a trio of key pieces at the start at the forefront of that team. Asher should be a key arm for them as well. Connor Stiles is a right-handed pitcher who's headed to Itawamba. He should throw some big innings once again as well. Carter Lee, Kane Falciani. And then you got juniors like Sam Gillette, Braden Weathers, who were starters last year. Whit Chrysler and Jack Sims are a couple other names to follow. And then Barrett McKelvey is a sophomore. Has got a chance to see some playing time. And then I personally hope, if Coach Phillips is out there listening, which I'm sure he is, I hope we get to see Max Kimbrell in that kickoff classic, that 2030, who's got a special arm we saw last year. So the Hartselle Tigers stay at the top spot, and the defending 6A champs. We'll see how it shapes out, but that's how we have 6A pegged going into the season. And I'll sit back here for the next 20 minutes as you roll through these teams outside the top 10.
Yeah, we're gonna roll through this as quickly as we can because it's 9:31 and we need to wrap this up pretty soon. We still got 7A to do, but yeah, man, we've talked about 6A ad nauseum, but I guess you see why now. I mean, every one of those 10 teams there are legitimate state title contenders, and there's some state title contenders sitting outside the top 10 as well. Well, again, these are alphabetical. You've got Benjamin Russell, had a first-round exit last year. Buckhorn made it to the Sweet 16 last year. I believe they got beat by Mountain Brook, correct?
Who's that?
Buckhorn.
Yes.
Yes. Buckhorn beat them. That's correct. Calera made it to the Elite Eight last year. Thank you, Mr. Rivers. We appreciate that. Calera made it to the Elite Eight last year. I think they lost some key seniors, but they do bring back enough to be contenders in 6A. Coleman, a Sweet 16 appearance last year. They are expecting to be good this year. Coleman. I mean, Coleman's going to be hard nosed, and they're going to get after you. Fort Payne won 21 games last year, finished Sweet 16. Gardendale, Gardendale. I've said this before. Coach Keedy does a fantastic job there, and I mean this in all respect, as respectful as possible. That first weekend of the season last year, had you told me that Gardendale team would finish in the Final Four last year, I don't know if I would have believed you, because they made a significant stride throughout the course of the year. And listen, they got beat by the eventual state champion. Again, that's kudos to Coach Keedy and his coaching staff. Again, 26 wins last year, ousted in the Final Four by the eventual state champions, Hartselle Tigers. Gulf Shores, the Dolphins of Gulf Shores made it to the Sweet 16 last year, won 20 games. And, that's a team that we discussed a lot here with our top 10. Coach Jacks, again, not trying to sound like a broken record. That's a hard-nosed club. He coaches his kids hard. And I say that's a compliment as well. That's a throwback type of baseball program as well.
Getting some upgrading facilities too, aren't they?
Yes, they are, and he's pumped about that.
Good for them.
Yeah, good for them. Helena, the Huskies, a notoriously strong 6A program. Coach Mitch Moreland takes over this year after Coach Guy goes to Oak Mountain. Sweet 16 last year, winning 21 games. We said they beat Northridge last year in the first round. Exciting matchup. The Golden Gophers of Hueytown, Coach Chandler, they won 25 games last year. He talked about that sort of a benchmark for them every year, trying to get to that 25-win plateau. Made it to the Sweet 16 last year. Returned a lot of pieces that we talked about. They'll be in the thick of it. Pelham, Coach Guy Howard, Listen, I thought they overachieved a little bit last year. I mean, I really did. He did a great job coaching that team. They did miss the playoffs. We've talked about that playoff, that area with Spain Park, with Chelsea. I've gone blank.
Helena.
And Helena. Holy cow. Yeah. I mean, that's 4 teams there. We've talked about all 4 of them tonight. 2 of them aren't going to get in. That's the sad truth of it. Rehoboth won 19 games last year, lost in the first round. Spanish Fort, always good. Spanish Fort. The Toros will be a factor in 6A this year. 22 games, won last year, and Elite 8 appearance. Coach Tommy Walker does a great job. Stanhope Elmore. That's a team I think Austin really likes. They won 26 games last year, made it to the Final Four. They got hot at the right time, which we know that's what baseball is about. And
that's another team like Coach Keedy. Coach Schumann always does a great. I mean, making the Final Four last year was it's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, was that a surprise? I mean, yeah, I think it was a surprise, but again, that's nothing disrespectful. That's a compliment, And then rounding us out with teams to keep an eye on, with Tumpka, the Indians, got beat in the first round last year after winning 18 games. But Coach Brooks will have them ready to go, as he always does. But again, that's 6A, man. We tried to talk as fast as we could to get through that. Again, you look at that screen there. That is an impressive group of teams. So we'll wrap it up tonight with 7A, and it doesn't get much easier here, but not as deep as 6A, I don't think. But again, 7A is loaded as usual.
Yeah, not as deep, but very top heavy.
Yeah.
Starting it off at Class 7A with number 10. Really went back and forth with this spot. There were a number of teams who we thought that had a chance to make it in, but ultimately landed with the Auburn Tigers. Who, when looking at their roster, was really what gave them the nod. Obviously, they're going to be led on the mound by Brady Sack, who's a guy who took on some really strong innings last year for them, has continued to get better, was up to 91 in our preseason All-State. Is committed to South Alabama. You've got Britt Farr, Wilson Foster, Bryson Shepard, Antoine Daniels, and then Angelo Santiago making up the core of the middle of that order. And then on the mound, Max Autry and Hank Brantley are guys who threw a wealth of innings last year for the Tigers. So they've got the pieces. So they come in at number 10. And number 9, you've got the Enterprise Wildcats, last year's runner-up in Class 7A with an incredible 34-3 record. Obviously losing Brady Richardson is tough to replace, both at the plate and on the mound. But they've got some pieces coming back and return a legitimate number 1 in Brady Kavanaugh, left-handed pitcher, who will hit in the middle of that order and anchor that pitching staff, who's headed to Shelton State. You've also got Walker Turner and who's the
Danner,
Drew Danner, and then they've also got one more returner who I'm blanking on, but Davis Shiver, who's a two-way player for them. So we'll see how the Wildcats follow up their 34-3 season last year. And number 8 is James Clemens. The Jets, led by Coach Johnny Johnson, they've got talent up and down, seniors, juniors. They've got a really strong underclassmen group. Last year, they went 24-15, got beat by Tuscaloosa County in the first round. And that Tuscaloosa County team, who obviously went on to win the state championship in Class 7A. This year, they bring back a bunch of seniors led by Matthew Drinkwater, Jesse Eisensee, Tyler Lewis, Brooks Rhodes, Hayden Udovich, Will Votrabek, who I think is on the shelf right now, but hopefully we get to see him work his way back. And then in the 2027 class, Will Congo and Hudson Smith are 2 starters coming back. And then a 2028 who's got all the potential in the world, we feel like, is Bryson Hodge. Got his feet wet last year playing as a freshman. We're excited to see what 2026 has for him. And then another wild card type piece for them, who I think if he really clicks this spring, it really raises that ceiling for James Clemens, and that's Tristan Blaylock, the number 1 player ranked in the 2029 class. That apparently has been up in the low 90s in preseason bullpen. So we'll see how what 2026 looks like for him. But the Jets come in at number 8. At number 7 is Vestavia Hills, who's another team who we think has an incredibly high ceiling, but they're like it's a common narrative, that those two Birmingham areas. It's we talk about it all year long and follow it. We'll see how it shapes out, but on paper, the Rebels have a ton of talent coming back.
And let me throw it out there. This is a team that Austin wanted to rank higher.
Yeah. Cross Tonsmeyer, Charlie Taff, Gavin Smith, offensively on the mound. Cooper Anderson and Wilson Sismella are two key pieces on the mound for them. You've also got Jacob Harris, middle of the order bat for them. So really high on the Rebels going into 2026. They come in at number 7. At number 6, we have the Huskies of Hewitt-Trussville. Obviously losing Steele Hall is a big piece, but we feel like they replace him pretty well with Jace Riggin, a 2027 shortstop right-handed pitcher who moves in from Florida. Really toolsy two-way player. Apparently has been up to 92 on the mound and can really swing it. You bring back Hudson Mitchell, who
Florida State commit. Yep. Jace Riggin, Florida State commit. Yep.
Yeah. Hudson Mitchell, who as a freshman was their number 2 behind Helmers, and I think had a sub-1 ERA or close to it.
I think he was 11-1 on the season, I believe.
Yeah. So we'll see how he can follow up his 2020 his freshman campaign, and Kel McIntosh is another key returner for the Huskies. And Hewitt-Trussville will always have talent. They'll always be able to replace it. So we'll see how they follow up their season. Last year they went 33-4. They were ranked number 1 for the majority of the season. I think ranked top 10 nationally in our Prep Baseball National Poll. Reached the Elite 8, got beaten in that thrilling series against Bob Jones. So Hewitt-Trussville comes in at number 6. And number 5 is Central Phoenix City. The Red Devils last year finished 33-10, reached the Elite 8, got beat by Fairhope on the road. Losing Sam Brown, a few other players are going to be. We'll see how what newcomers step up to fill those roles, but left-handed pitcher Cam Norton and left-handed pitcher outfielder Cam Norton has been a reliable piece for the Red Devils over the past few years. And then you've got up the middle, Carter Gilley, a 2028 shortstop, played as a freshman last year. Jalen Carter is another talented sophomore player. It's going to be some newcomers this year for the Red Devils, but winning just seems to always be in their DNA. Hayden Jones is another name to watch for. So we'll see what 2026 looks like for Central Phoenix City, but they always seem to find a way to be one of the top teams in 7A. At number 4, we have the Thompson Warriors. One second, led by Coach Frankie Perez. Thompson went 27-15 last year, and reached the class. Went 27-15. Got put out by Bob Jones in the first round of the playoffs, but returned a strong core of players from last year's team. Obviously, you start with Wyatt Williams at the top, leading that rotation. An Alabama commit who's been up to 95 last spring. We'll see what his senior season looks like. He can also swing it. Austin Barnett at the top of the order as a leadoff hitter last year. Donovan Van Schaak, Logan Watson, Brody Sabo, Cooper Fuller, Joshua Tuttle, Ashton Blair. Just a ton of returners back for the Warriors. We'll see how that area shapes out. It's going to be intriguing to follow all season long. But Thompson, once again, is going to be talented in 2026. And number 3 is the Patriots of Bob Jones. One second. Last year, Bob Jones went 37-12, reached the Final Four, and got beat by Tuscaloosa County on the road in an entertaining series. Went 37-12, like I said, pushed that series, I think, to 3 games, lost 3-1, in that series. They return Cole Spanier, one of their top returning hitters, had 5 home runs last year. Should be a back end arm for them. Mick Terrell brings back a lot of experience from behind the plate. He should also throw some innings on the mound for them. He's signed with Lawson. Joshua Wilhide really came on strong for them on the mound last year, and should be one of their top arms this year. Reese Brazil is another good option on the mound. Graham Seagraves, and then Hudson Olive is another piece who has a chance to have a breakout 2026 campaign. He was really good at our preseason All-State in North Alabama. And then Tate Dunn moves in. He's one of the top catchers in the state, signed with Itawamba, middle of the order bat, is going to be able to drive in runs. And then add in Cam Jenkins, shortstop, who moves in from Illinois, was at the Super 60 last week. He's committed to Missouri and debuted at number 6 today in the 2026 rankings. And so Bob Jones has got some other young players who have a chance to enter the fold, and but certainly have the pieces on the mound and at the plate to replicate the postseason success they've had over the past few years.
You forgot the young pup that was mentioned in their article, G.G. Weiss.
Yeah, I know.
A 2030 that's going to be very well may earn some varsity playing time this year. Our buddy Chad Martin, man, says, no dog in this fight. Unfortunately, love you guys. Appreciate what you do for these young men and their programs. Man, Chad, it's great to see you, and hope to see you at some games this year when I get out, man. So appreciate you chiming in and listening when you don't even have a kid playing anymore.
Yeah. Down to the top 2. At number 2, we have Tuscaloosa County, the Wildcats, last year's the defending 7A state champs. Just a historic run throughout the season, especially on the back half last year. Tuscaloosa County went 34-13 and won the 7A state championship over Enterprise. And they've got a bunch of arms back, especially you've got Tate Pettis, Gibbs White, Ford Trawick, who will be their shortstop as well. Losing Cole Nicholson is a big piece to fill in the middle of that order, as well as Camden Barnett. But you bring back other names like Deshaun Moten and some other key people. Brooks Malone, who was about as good. He was consistently turning in quality outing after quality outing against some big-time lineups. So the Wildcats look poised to have a chance to defend the 7A state championship going into 2026.
Coach Richardson just reached out for his questionnaire today, so he'll be getting it in the next day or two, he said.
There you
and
go.
We'll see them the first 2 weekends of the season.
No doubt.
Yep.
And then getting on to number 1 in Class 7A, the Hoover Bucks. On paper, Hoover returns as much, if not more, high-end talent, led by obviously Will Adams and Jackson Wood, 2 top 5 players in the state. Will Adams headed to LSU, and Jackson Wood headed to Tennessee. Hitting in the middle of that order, they're gonna be 2 tough outs, obviously, and then I think Jonah Winston's gonna hit at the top of that order for them. Really athletic, multi-sport player, headed to Florida State. Did you say something?
I was gonna say we were watching their game changer of their umpire scrimmage, and the top 5 were Winston, Wood, Adams, Hudson Oliver, and James All.
Yeah,
that's 5 guys at the top that can bang it around the yard.
Caleb Stone is another. Stone hit in the middle of the order in that umpire scrimmage.
Yep.
Jake Fridley was really impressive a couple weeks ago at our preseason All-State. Grayson Payne, you said it, James All.
Max Crowder.
Max Crowder. So the top 7 in that order, especially, is about as good as it gets. So, and on the mound, Will Adams, and they've got some other pieces too that will help round out that rotation. But on paper, the Hoover Bucks are incredibly talented. But you look at that, especially that top 7. That's a good bit of Birmingham teams. So we'll see how those 2 areas in Birmingham shape out. Going to be a storyline to follow all season long. But there's no shortage of talent in Class 7A.
No doubt. Again, it's just, stocked with talented programs there. And then again, we've got some teams outside the top 10, as we do in all the other classes. Alma Bryant made it to the playoffs last year, had a first round exit. They won 20 games. You've got Baker, the Hornets out of Mobile, won 18 games last year. They were also, they exited in the first round. Daphne also won 18 games, lost in the first round. Dothan is in that Auburn Central and
they're with
that's right,
Enterprise.
with Enterprise. I'm sorry. Yeah, they're with Enterprise. I apologize. Dothan made the playoffs last year, got beat in the first round, won 20 games. Fairhope, the Pirates, had a great run last year, won 31 games, made it to the Final Four where they lost to Enterprise in the semifinals. There is a pretty good turnover there at Fairhope this year, but I'm telling you, that's another team to watch. Don't want to say who might be number 11 or 12, but Fairhope was definitely in that discussion. The Grissom Tigers won 24 games a year ago. They got beat in the first round. I believe it was by Hoover. Yes, and I was there at that series. Got beat by Hoover, but again, they've got some arms that they like, obviously headlined by Dalton Darden, hitter and arm. They'll be counting on this year. Hillcrest Tuscaloosa. That's a team that you can never count out. You'll look up halfway through the season and they'll be 21-5 against a very, Coach Garner does a great job. They play tough competition, get his team ready. They missed the postseason last year. Again, we're talking about those tough areas in the Birmingham area after winning 24 games. Oak Mountain is another team that very well could have been ranked. They missed the playoffs last year, but Coach PJ Guy takes over this year at Oak Mountain after they won 17 games last year. I believe they're going to be able to really pitch it at a high level, and I think they're going to score some runs as well. Coach Bart Butler and the Opelika Bulldogs, 20 wins last year. I guess it's okay for me to say this. That area in the past has sort of been a Central Auburn battle for the last few years. I think Opelika is right there ready to compete with them. They've created some depth. I'm not saying that they haven't been able to compete with them in the past, but I think Opelika can really turn some heads this year. I like them. Again, they've got some good young talent, and they also can pitch it as well. Prattville, you may be seeing Prattville that first Thursday, may or may not. That's another team, that didn't have the best of year last year, but they've got some really nice returning pieces. We've talked to some of their players.
Just lose Mason Piper.
What's that?
Just lose Mason Piper.
Right. That's the only person they lose. That's correct. And then the Sparkman Senators, man. Sparkman won 20 games last year, got beat in the first round. I believe it was to Hewitt. That's right. Got beat by Hewitt. I think it was two fairly close games, 5-0, 4-0, something like that. Sparkman sort of, in my opinion, again, people want to talk about, disrespecting people. This is no disrespect. I thought Sparkman overachieved last year. Not the most talented team on paper, but Coach Stevenson does a good job. They won that area, and they've got some pieces back. I know we've said that about every team, it seems like, but they're going to be right in the thick of that area with Albertville, Huntsville, and Grissom. I think that area is up for grabs, and I think Sparkman, again, Sparkman won it last year, and they'll be right in the thick of it again this year. So, man, we got it wrapped up. Whew. That was a little longer show than we expected.
Over 3,500 viewers right now.
Wow. Well, we appreciate each and every one of you jumping on. This has gone a little bit longer than I sort of anticipated. We'll be announcing when our next podcast will be. We'll put it out on our social media channels. I'm not going to go over our normal stuff that we normally go over towards the end of the podcast because this one is going so long. But again, to all 3,500 of you that have jumped on to listen to one part or the other, we appreciate every single one of you. Again, I want to reiterate for Austin and myself, there is absolutely no disrespect towards any school in this. None of this matters. It's about what happens on the field, and more importantly, in those six-ish games that you'll play in the area, that's the only thing that matters, is getting in the playoffs and having a chance to win a blue map. So again, we enjoy doing this. We only want to bring attention to baseball across the state of Alabama. We enjoy doing it. We spend a lot of time talking about it. We have some deep discussions on teams and top 10. So, I'm going to wrap it up with that. Austin, before we go, do you have anything else to add?
I'm good. Nope.
Again, we appreciate each and every one of you. It's getting closer by the day. We're about 10 or 11 days out from first pitch. We're getting pumped. We know you are as well. For Austin Sharp, our Alabama scouting director, I am David Sharp, the Deep South Supervisor. Once again, we appreciate you jumping on, listening, or watching around the state, and we will see you next time. Thanks again. Have a good week.